Yo, yo, yo. Hey, guys, welcome back to another amazing edition of the Best Practices Show podcast. In our previous 2 episodes, we outlined how you really sharpen your vision. We had Sharpen Your Vision Part 1, we had Sharpen Your Vision Part 2, and now we have Sharpen Your Vision Part 3, defining your core values. One of the most important things you'll ever do in your business. With an amazing coach we have here. Her name is Robyn Theisen. Please listen to this. It will change your life. I promise you. So hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll see you soon. Hey guys, welcome back to the Best Practices Show podcast. Our goal, jam, everything we do here is to give you great information to improve your practice and your life. And we're going to do just that with an amazing coach. Her name is Robyn Theisen. And we're continuing the series, if you've been listening to the podcast, about how to really sharpen your vision. This is part 3. On defining your core values. So make sure you pay attention. This is powerful. Robyn, thanks for being back. I appreciate you.
Oh, I love being here. Thanks for having me again.
Oh, yeah. You didn't really have a choice. I always say that, but like...
I'm happy to do it.
Yeah. And no joke. It's so much fun working with amazing coaches like Robyn. I learn something all the time, and you will too, because you're going to see how sharp she is and how important all of this stuff is. So, Robyn, let's talk about the why first. Having a defined core values. Why is this important?
I think, one thing that we have talked so much about recently is attracting and retaining the right talent and the right people in your practice. And so have an established set of values really helps you to find the right people. It also differentiates you from the practice. So retaining those people within this employment market and this environment has been a game changer for a lot of practices. In addition to that, from a patient perspective, it allows you to really define your practice and attract the right patients too, right? They are attracted to the values and they see the difference when they walk in. So attracting and retaining patients is a big part of that as well.
Yeah. And we're going to go into the details of this. Now, I'm just going to be the listener who's hearing this and like, oh my gosh, another thing about core values. Yes. And I was you back in my 30s and even 40s. I'm like, oh my gosh, another thing on core values. I can't take it anymore. Now, I had always believed in core values. I had always believed in that. But I thought, I tell this story all the time, like when our coach came in the first time and said, where are your core values? And I was like, oh, I love this conversation. And I was describing all these feelings. I was like, karate here. Like I was describing like this internal feeling about like why I care about the work. And he's like, where are they? And I go, well, they're not written down. They're feelings. He's like, shut up. And that's exactly what he said. And he was saying it. And we actually had a great conversation after that. And he said, look, I'm not working with you until we have these I want it to be the flag in the ground. I want you to make a statement about how people behave. Now, we're going to go into the details of all this, but I'm here to tell you firsthand. If I would have done this earlier, it would have saved so much stomach lining. You are probably listening to this podcast going, you know what, I'm just trying to find great people and I wanted you to get the right patients in the practice. And this is not the podcast you're looking for. You were looking for like the magic in the marketing formula, the algorithm. And what's the secret to put in an ad that will help you find the right person? I'm here to tell you that stuff is important, but not nearly as important as your core values. When you really do this work, you find people that are greater than you could ever imagine. All the crazy stuff that you think about on a daily basis that makes you miserable goes away. I'm not kidding. It is crazy stuff repellent. Let me say that again. Core values is crazy stuff repellent. When you really get your core value, you can actually just spray it all over the office and people go, wow, that's a really nice fragrance. And you won't get crazy stuff like I don't even want to go into actually, Robyn, we're going to do an episode on the craziest things we've ever heard in dental practice, and that's going to have to be censored probably. But like, I'm telling you, it works. It totally works. Wouldn't you agree?
I mean, 100%. It's your barometer to hiring, firing, what works, what doesn't work, what our business decisions are, everything. And when you have a team that is centered around those same values, it really makes things so much easier.
Yeah. And so
it gives you a place to start. Totally.
And so if you're following along in this 3-part series, we're talking about your vision and the details of it and how to do it with the 6 questions. And then the previous version of the podcast was part 2, and that's your core purpose. And now we're going to get into your core values. Now, Robyn, I need you to define this. What are core values? What are they?
Sure. So there's a few different categories of them. And so the core values are they're the non-negotiables. So those are the things that are, when you look at your teammates, when you're, again, hiring, firing, making business decisions, these are the values that are non-negotiable. They have to show up. And so that is why they're called core. Now, there are a few other categories of things that you work through as you're really defining your core values to make sure that they don't fall into another category. So one would be permission to play. So those are minimal behavior standards. It's nothing that differentiates you from the practice. It's the minimal to even apply for the job. And so an example of that may be, respect, having respect for others, or agreeing to not steal money from people. Those would be very minimal, basic standards, and they're called permission to play. So
right.
That's one type of value.
Like show up on time, be a good person. I mean, those are pretty basic. Don't be intoxicated at work. That's kind of crazy, but you would be surprised by what we figure out. But they're basics. They're like, this is what you need to even interview for the role here. So,
right. Yeah. So that's called permission to play. Then you have accidental core values. So these are traits that show up. They're not necessarily by design. It's more so by happenstance. So an accidental value may be that everybody lives in the same community in your dental practice, or that you have all women that work at your practice. Those would be accidental. They're not necessarily, they don't have to be in order for you to be a part of that. That's a trait that showed up. And it's on an accidental level.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then there's the other version is aspirational. And so these are when you're the leader and you may have a core value that you wanted to put down, but you realize that it's really not something that you live by or is 100% in your practice. It's something that you aspire to be. That would be an aspirational value. So if as a leader, you look at yourself and think, I'm not quite there, that could go on the aspirational, value portion, and we can work towards that. You're not quite there. One example of that would be, we always see people on time, or time is really important to us. And if you're a practice that frequently runs behind, that's an aspirational value. That may be where you want to get to. It hasn't quite happened yet.
Yeah.
And then you get to your core values of here are the non-negotiables, and what we, as a leader and as a team member, here's what we do.
Yeah. And so it's important to categorize them so that you don't call them out as core values when they're not really core values. Now, you're going to fall into this trap. That's why permission to play, accidental, and aspirational are good. It's good nomenclature for what that is, because you're going to start this process. You're going to get excited about something, and then it's important to either have a coach or a team member go, that's not really a core value. That's a permission to play thing. And if you do that early enough, you can actually start to put the real work into what the core value is, and that's where the real work goes. But further define core values. Let's go there. What are they and what aren't they?
Well, so we talk about the core values as verbs. So there's an action piece to this, right? So, as we're working with doctors through this, many times they come up with a word. And that word may mean something to them. It doesn't necessarily tell the team member what's expected of them. So further defining that and making it an action is a really important part to letting your team members know what behavior is acceptable, giving clarity to that. And it really does help you to eliminate some of that micromanaging when your team members know exactly what's expected of them by creating your core values into verbs. There is a great Simon Sinek video that we often play I send it to a lot of my doctors, have them watch, and he talks about the core values as verbs. And one of the examples that he gives is that, a lot of people will put honesty as one of their core values. Well, I think we all pretty much think we're honest people. So when you change that to always tell the truth, that's a different action and a different result comes from that when we're challenging ourselves with the core values, and are we living these, and do they come alive every day in our practice?
Yeah, you do have to pressure test these because I agree they are verbs. Basically, let me make this as simple as possible because this is how I understood it. It's behaviors. They're actually describable behaviors that you see on a daily basis that you go, oh, that's what I love and that's what makes us work. Now, this is not a democratic thing where you ask everybody, what do you guys think? What do you guys think? This is primarily led by the person who created the business because you're going to have a hard time trying to keep everybody happy about what your values are if it's not truly the fabric of what makes you happy at work. Now, let me go to the anti-values. The reason core values are so important is that if you're ever unhappy with the people you work with or the people you see, it's not anything other than their behavior or what they value. Your favorite people value the same things that you value, and they behave the same way that you behave. Your least favorite people you ever work with, they're not bad people. They just don't really value the same thing as you, and I just don't choose to behave that way. And so I love that you use that one. Integrity, excellence, and innovation, those are three of my least favorite because, what does excellence mean? Like, excellence to me means like near perfection. And that is really hard as a behavior on other people. Now, you can disagree with me, but that's totally cool. The other one that I'm okay if you use it, but I wouldn't use it ever is love. Because love for me means different things. Love, if you really want to go deep on this, love is a decision. It's not an emotion, blah, blah, blah. That's a whole nother podcast. And then how do you describe to a new team member that, hey, I need to see love from you every day? That would be kind of weird if you were my boss saying, I need love from you. I would go, I don't know if I want to work here. Do you know what I mean? Type of a thing. So you want them to be super clear and actionable. Let me give you a couple examples. Like my favorite of all time is all in attitude. That's it. All the others, and it came from a whole topic of like around the accidental work environment, like, that's not my job. Well, I don't really do that. And I couldn't stand it anymore. I'm like, I don't care who you are. I have seen Barrett Straub take out the trash so many times and I love it. It's my favorite thing. It's all in attitude. We before me is another one that I love here is like, I have to work with people that are like, it's about us, not me. And not an I statement all the time. Always be growing. My coach, when I first did this, I was like, well, I really like education and I like to read and I want people to read. And he's like, that's too long. Stop talking. He's like, ABG. And I'm like, what does that mean? Always be growing. You want people that are all, I'm like, that's it. And I'm like, how can you make that easy? But he had done this exercise so many times. So I totally adopted that. Now, just to give you examples, they're actionable verbs that you can call out when you see them and show others that that's an important behavior here. And you are the leader in that whole process. So anything I'm leaving out on that before we go to, okay.
I think one thing that becomes tricky with practices is that when you're looking at the core values, what I see doctors do a lot is start talking about how you interact with patients only. And there is an element to that. There is also an element, it's how we interact as a team. And so some of that, like treating patients with respect, yes, absolutely. And how does that also mean how we show up and work with each other as a team member? So it's about an internal piece, not always about the patients, and how you weave that into it to make it both. And to make it very, specific to how we are as people and how we interact as team members.
Absolutely.
And I look at ours, a lot of ours, we talk about, the results driven and things. There's a results piece that is very specific to accidental. And then there's also a piece that is to our clients. So there's that is applicable in both places for us. So as you're creating those, the tendency tends to be very patient focused. And so it's reworking that and thinking through that a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I just can't say it enough. They're the non-negotiable behaviors, verbs, that are absolutely the focal point for not only how we handle each other and how we interact with our clients. Now, I'll tell you, oh gosh, I have so many stories around this, but let's hold them until we actually get through the details. One more thing I just want to add is that once you start going down this path, you got to be patient and let them really get clear. And what I always say, and I borrowed it from somebody else, is you got to let them bake for about a year. It's one of those things that you put into play and then you're like, is this real? Because you'll change a few of the words, you'll leave one out, you'll combine some. So you gotta let the process bake for about a year before you go, that's it. I think we're there. And you can't move too quickly. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%. And your first version, that it's not meant, like we talk about, progress, not perfection. They aren't meant to be perfect at first. You have a starting place and they may change over time. And as you really start to work through them with your team and have team members come and go, some of those things, it helps you to solidify those things as they're in action and you see them at work.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to go there. What does this have to do with team culture? Like, what do strong core values, what role do they play in creating a team culture?
We talked about, attracting and retaining the right people. They also set an expectation. And, I remember when I applied for my role at Act Dental, one of the first thing I had to do was send in a video talking about how the core values resonated with me. And it did. I knew from the beginning what the expectation was of me. And if that was going to fit with me or not, that starts with the hiring process. And if I'm applying to the job. So it does set expectations for how you are as an individual and how we interact as a team, which I think is a really important piece to set from the very beginning.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say that it really builds trust within the team. We know what to expect of each other. So if our core values are out there, we know what it is and we trust each other to follow through with those. And it helps us to address conflicts when it comes up. If we've all agreed to this, we know what our core values are. And if there is some misalignment there, it becomes an easier conversation to be able to have that together when we know what our purpose is together and we know what our core values are and what we've all agreed to.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go back to the trust thing because a lot of times we micromanage when we don't trust. We're just like, oh gosh, I got to teach her how to talk and how to behave, and then I got to reprimand. The cool thing about the values is when somebody gets it, like they're your people, you don't have to worry at all. Now, you do have to add some energy to it to add some clarity, but overall, it's one of the things you can do to truly let go and say, we've talked about this a million times. They know what I expect. And you can smile. And also one more thing. Well, it's not true. I'll give you 30 more things. When you hire somebody who's picking up what you're putting down, like you, Robyn, or anybody, they're like, dude, I love your values. Like, that is me. That's where the power comes in. People feel congruent with the environment that they're contributing to. It's not like there's no friction to how they express themselves, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and from the beginning what's expected of you. I mean, it is. I know exactly what I was signing up for, and so that makes a big difference. A big thing. One of the main things with the culture too is the leadership. Like when you know what the leadership is, and you see the leader embodying those core values, that trust in the solidity really helps to solidify the team, and is an important part of it. Trusting the leader and trusting that you also know where their values are and what decisions are going to be made and how that is going to impact you in the practice.
Right. So if you're listening to the podcast, I'm going to piggyback on what Robyn said, and there's a warning. You might just want to skip over this section. There's a downside to core values, a huge downside, because once you lean into them, you're going to see its power. You're going to go, this is it. Now, if you're in a partnership, and you are in partnership with somebody else that doesn't share the same core values, it never, ever, 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 ever works. I can't say ever enough. Yeah. Now, the only way it works is if you numb yourself and you No, seriously, like you give up on it. You go, okay, I always want an all in. He is 50-50. I guess you give up on, you compromise who you are as a human being to be in relationship. Now, the same thing applies in our personal lives. Like life is not perfect, but when people don't share the same value system, it eventually gives, like it breaks. One more important piece of establishing your core values is the first people you run the values through is the leadership team. You don't go to the team and go, hey, we've established our values. We want you guys to live by this. We want to try. If the leadership team, whether it be one person or four, isn't locked in on those values, it never works and it's BS talk forever. So, and trust me, give yourself a little grace as a leader. I have 6 of them, and no one screws up more here at Act Dental than me. And I want to call it out, and I want team members call it out. So you have to have some humility. It's not a perfect thing, but for the most part, it's got to be extremely congruent. I don't know if I'm saying that right,
Yeah. I think too, how it can backfire also is when you live by these and you expect your team members to live by them. When somebody doesn't fit, your team's going to quickly say, you said this was non-negotiable. This person's not a core values fit, and this may not be the place for them. And those can be hard decisions for leaders to make. And so your team's going to hold your feet to the fire too, of if this is who we say we are, then everybody on the team has to be that person.
Yeah. And so I'll give you an extra why you do this. Everyone is looking for, and I'm saying this to the listeners, you already know this, Robyn, because so if you're a dentist, you only hire people for 2 reasons. 2. You don't hire people for 4 reasons or 6 reasons. You only hire people for 2 reasons. Number 1, this person fits our core values. The second reason you hire somebody is they get results in their role. That's it. Not because they're your friend, not because they work somewhere else, not because they're a stable leg to the table. I have heard that many times.
Oh, yeah.
You hire people for 2 reasons. They fit our core values and they get results. And when you're talking to them and growing and developing them, you can stay super focused on why or why not somebody is a fit for your team. Right person, right seat. And we'll cover that in another. But you can evaluate people against your core values, because if you don't, it's a lot of words, it's emotional, and it's like, you don't do this, you don't do that. You can easily say to a team member, and I've said it twice in my career since doing this, and I was so nervous. I said, here are our values. If you don't want to live by them, I totally get that, but you can't work here. And that's all I said. And so the team member ultimately has a decision. Yeah. Do I want to live by these values? They might just say, this is hogwash. I don't even want to be a part of it. And that's okay too. But the importance of this is you have to, now we do have people that sit down with team members and they don't have these established yet. And that becomes a difficult conversation. And I get it. Like, you have to establish these, but this is ultimately so that you can decide if somebody's a fit long-term.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
How do I do this, Robyn, though? Like, how do I define my core values? Okay, show me how to do this. What do I do?
So as all things ACT, we have a form, or we have a process for this, right?
What?
We have a tool. So we have a tool for this, and how it starts is looking at first, if you pick your top 2 or 3 team members, and if you can find what makes them, former or current, but what made them great for your practice? What are the qualities that they share that showed up in all of them that were really great for your practice, and reasons why they really worked for you and resonated with you as a team member? So starting with that. So start with the positive, pick a few, and that helps you to start narrowing down what the core values are, because it's going to show up in those types of people.
Yeah.
The next step then is what you said, the anti-core values. So then you choose, 2 or 3 people that didn't work out. And why didn't they work out? What is the opposite of what you were looking for that made you part ways with them? And that helps you to also define a little bit more of like, okay, what are the core values and what am I wanting to steer absolutely away from? So there is that. And then the third part is, like you said, it's running it through the leadership. If you are a solo practitioner, it's running it through yourself. Can you look in the mirror and say, I do all of these things and I live this on a daily basis. This is really who I am, and I can stand in front of my team and share this because this is me. And so that is a really important part of that, is being able to run it through you and your leadership team. We have to be able to be lockstep on these. And then the fourth part is looking at, if this were going to be a competitive disadvantage, if there was something that was going to make this a competitive disadvantage in the dental industry, do I still believe in this? So an example of that may be having education, patient education, and always be growing, being a huge part of this. If that became where it didn't fit in the industry, is that still something that you believe in? And so that helps those 4 steps really helps you to run through it and make sure that your core values are what you believe them to be.
Yeah. And so again, this is for debate, but people will put technical components into their values, like we are, whether it be, something around inflammation or airway or digital. I would encourage you to stay away from that, because again, you're trying to identify behaviors in your work family that really foster a great culture. And I'm here to say firsthand, all you need is people that are your people, and everything changes. Now, Robyn laid out a great step-by-step. Step number 1, identify 1 to 3 employees, former or past. And then number 2, 1 to 3 employees, former or past, that weren't. I started with step number 2. Don't do that. Because when I did this process, I started with the anti-values. I immediately went to the stuff I hate, all the crap I hate, and the team members that made me crazy. Now, the lesson that I learned is what you focus on grows, positive or negative. So I spent a lot of time in the negative because I just wanted to get rid of the negative. And I didn't give the value to what I loved most. And so I created what were called anti-values type of a thing. So follow the process. What are my favorite behaviors? What are some behaviors I won't tolerate? And then how do we start from top down? And then will this stand the test of time? And through that process, you're going to see it really, really works. I absolutely love it. What else? What are some other thoughts? Any final takeaways or any other steps we should let everybody know about?
I think some of the biggest things, that leadership component is really important, to make sure that you are living them every day. I think too, the mistake of having them be where we write them down and, having them alive on the walls, not in the halls. So making sure that we live those every day, and with our meeting structure and what we encourage teams to do, that's the first place we start, is recognizing our core values and making sure that they stay alive within the practice. They're the filter for everything. As I am, talking with doctors and there may be team issues or decisions that they're making, my first question is typically to them, does it align with your core values? Are they a core values fit? That's really where everything starts from. It's a filter. So it gives you some clarity on what's really important. And as you start to work through that process, you really start to use them as those judgment issues, and to really help you do the right thing or stay true to what your values are.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's, I can't say this enough. All roads, and I do mean all roads, lead back to your core values. And so, as simple as that might sound, you're going to get all these things come your way as a dentist or as a leader. And you just have to pass them through the filter of, like, do they fit my values? Now, you're going to use them on a lot of good things to identify good behaviors, but I'll tell you, they will become tested on one side of things, the bad things. There's going to be bad things that you're going to be like, this is messy. I can't believe it. And you're going to have to really stand behind your values, even if it hurts, even if you lose money, even if you lose an amazing team member who's an unbelievable producer, and you think it could set you back. In the long run, it's going to propel you so much forward. And I never believed that early in my career. I was so afraid to stand behind my values because we'd take a step back financially or talent-wise. And how silly is that? Once you step forward, you're going to see everybody else step forward, and it always gets better. So it is truly the filter. Now, another thing too is, like, sometimes I use this all the time. And so, Robyn, I'm going to let you in on one of my secrets as a leader. Sometimes things come your way and you're like, wow, that's I don't even know what to say about that other than, and you need some time to think about it, and you can say, I'm just going to reflect, like, what do my values say? I pull the values card, and like, it's as much as that's my, hey, I need 5 more minutes, it's truly the big card that helps us understand, like, is this the right thing to do? And everyone is watching you. They're all watching you to see if you're going to follow this whole, see these values we got on the wall? Like, do you really mean those? And it's pretty fun. So it's good stuff.
I almost think it makes the hard decisions easier.
Yes.
When you have set those and you establish them, being, your team is watching, like you're saying, and am I going to be congruent with what my values are? And so it's a tool to make those hard decisions almost easier if you're going to stay true to them and have them be the beacon for your practice.
Yeah. 2 last benefits I'll say about core values. We're all in the search of meaningful work. We spend 30% of our lives at this place called work. Why wouldn't you like to enjoy the people that you work with? Well, the key to that is core values. And one last thing, people hire me to do lectures all the time. They're like, hey, can you come and pump my team up? I want you to really motivate all of them. Now, I can do that for a day, but then everything will wear off. My real question to you as a dentist, if you're listening, is what do they have to be authentically motivated about? Because really talented people at the end of the day want to like who they are as a result of working for you. They like to enjoy who they are, and nothing makes them happier when they can go to a work environment that stands for something and they can express behaviors that are congruent with who they are naturally. And it becomes frictionless work. And you know what they do? They go find other people who are just like them and go, I got a friend who would be great here. I'm telling you, it's the ultimate joy tool, and it's the ultimate talent magnet tool, and it's the ultimate patient attracting tool, right?
Patients can tell what the culture is like. They know, they can feel that when they walk in the door. So absolutely, it works for your team and for your patients, 100%.
Yeah, one last thought I'll share. I always say that, but it's never true. So if you're a dentist listening, I could take you on a field trip. We could visit 4 practices today, 2 of them that are miserable and 2 of them that are crushing it. Yeah. I would ask, we're going to walk in the front door. You're not allowed to talk. I just want you to watch what's going on. And then when we go out the back door, I want you to tell me, are they crushing it or are they struggling? And you would be 100% accurate every single time. And it wouldn't be what they say. It would be the eyes. You could look in the eyes of the team members and you can go, ooh, this one's crushing it. Wow, you can tell by the eyes that they really enjoy being here. And then the ones that were struggling, you go, that one's struggling because the 2 people at the front don't even like each other. You could tell. And the values are the things that they ground in there. So I know this might sound a little out there, a little weird, but I'm here to tell you, and I'm sure, Robyn, you would say that too, the faster and more powerful you make these, the better everything gets.
Yes, absolutely. It's a process, and it's worth going through and really challenging yourself to come up with what works for you and what makes sense.
Amen.
For your team. Yeah.
Amen. So Robyn mentioned the tool. We actually have a tool called Identifying Your Core Values tool. We want you to have it. If you're listening to this podcast, you're like, I need some help with that. You can email me, kirk@actdental.com, or info@actdental.com, and we'll send you a copy of it. You can pass it out to your team members and say, hey, listen, I want to go down this road of creating our core values, and it'll walk you through this process. I promise you the tool works, and we're so happy to help you. So Robyn, thank you so much for being on here. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you and having me on.
Yeah, awesome. Well, stick around while we say goodbye to everybody else. But thank you guys for listening to the Best Practices Show podcast. Our goal here is to create great information that's helpful. And I'm telling you, this work has the biggest impact and the biggest ROI for a happy, healthy, profitable career in dentistry. I know you're struggling with what I just said, but it's true. Just do it. So if you have questions, we're always here to help you, and keep sending us suggestions for things you guys want to see. We're lining them up. We have an amazing fall and winter program in front of us, so keep joining in. So until we see you guys next time, or you hear from us next time, keep watching or keep listening to the Best Practices Show. You guys enjoy your day.